And we are live here on the Frugal Crafter channel. I'm Lindsay. Also in-house we have Sarah.
Good morning.
And we are ready to do some portrait painting today. We are going to paint this this portrait, and actually this was my study, so I'm hopefully the one we actually do today will be a little bit better. The areas of the painting I really liked were like the edges of the kimono. I love the looser look, and in here I thought the face maybe needed a little bit more more shading and contrast. The photo I'm using for reference is linked up in the video description, as well as a link to all the supplies I used. I am using Turner watercolors from jerrysartorama.com. They're our sponsor today, and I will have a link to these as well as the brushes. It's already in the video description. And I'm using the Mimic synthetic Kolinsky brushes, and I'm using the liner from the Mimic Squirrel set for the hair and whatnot, but any assortment of brushes should do fine. You will want a lot of rounds for this. We're going to be mixing flesh tones, and the colors that we're going to use today are yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and rose red, or you can use the Maya red that's in the set of 18 Turner colors. That's a great set to start with because it's only $30 for all 18 colors. It retails for $150, so it's a really great deal to get you started in on those paints. So go check out our sponsor, jerrysartorama.com. Let them know Lindsay sent you, and let them know how much you appreciate them sponsoring these live shows so that I can keep doing them and keep them free, which is what we all love. Free. Yay, free. All right, on my website, linked in the video description, is the pattern, the sketch. I just took a snapshot of the sketch that I drew, and if you want to trace that, you can. If not, you can look at the reference photo and sketch it yourself. They say that every portrait is a self-portrait because you can't help end up like changing things a little bit. So if everyone went out and sketched it, it'd all be a little bit different. So you can do either that. You can either trace mine, you could trace the photo, or you could sketch it freehand. What I'm going to do first is get started right here on the face, and I'm painting it with clear water, and I'm doing this now so the paint can kind of soak in, or the water can soak into the paper. I'm using Arches watercolor paper. I like to use that if I'm doing a portrait or anything that I'm going to be maybe reworking areas on, because it's a really durable paper, and also it seems to be more internally sized than externally sized. I don't get puddling, so it makes it very easy to control and to blend your paint. And I also put a link to the Arches paper from Jerry's Artorama. They have the best price. It's between 40 and 60% off list. So even if you're going to a big box store with a coupon, I don't think you'd get a price better than Jerry's. For like general painting, landscapes and things like that, you don't have to go with Arches. Arches is kind of like the you know, Cadillac of watercolor paper. Like you can get Strathmore 400 or Canton Montville blocks, you know, if you want to block a paper and not spend that much money. But I would say that for portrait or anything you're going to spend a lot of time in, it's worth getting the Arches. So now we're going to mix up some flesh tones, and what I'm going to do is actually put my color right out here in these little slant well palette. Here, this is a Zoltan Szabo palette. That's what I keep these paints in. So basically, when you're mixing these flesh tones, we're going to use these 4 colors in different variations and different amounts, and it's going to give you all these lovely skin tones. So you can mix pretty much any skin tone by using these colors. And it's almost like we're using we could actually pretty much use these because the burnt sienna is like a red, the yellow ochre is a yellow, and the ultramarine blue is obviously a blue. But I do find that sometimes you just need that pinkier look from a rose like that. All right, so for the main color of the skin, I'm going to use some burnt sienna and yellow ochre. I'm also going to mix up, and I'm keeping my brush dirty because I want the colors to go together. I don't want any really harsh colors here, and that will give me a darker color there. It's probably going to be a lot easier to see once you have it on the paper because it's not going to reflect. Now picking up a little bit of this pink, I'm just adding it over here into the yellow ochre to warm that up a little bit. So if any time my face gets a little too orange, I can grab the blue because it's the opposite and it will knock down that orange. It'll kind of cancel it out. And I also want some yellow ochre on its own because I know I'll need to dip into that on its own at some point. All right, now I'm going to wet the skin again. Actually, probably doesn't even need it because it looks like it's still pretty shiny. But if your paper is doesn't have an even sheen on it, go ahead and add some more water. Don't go over the teeth and the eyes, but you can go over the lips, eyebrows, and even the hair, because you'll know, like when you look at somebody and they've got the hair back in a ponytail, you still can sometimes see the hair, the skin under the hair. So you want to make sure you have that. And I'm going to go in here with this darker color and get that in. We are generally working light to dark, but our paper is pretty wet now, so we are going to have quite a shift. And I thought my skin was a little too light when I was looking at my study that I did. And I'm just the type of person that I have a much easier time if I get my darks in from the get-go. Then I'm way less timid. If anybody has any questions, type them in all caps in the chat box on the YouTube watch page, and Sarah can ask them to me. I think the all caps, somebody suggested that last week, and I think that'll help be able to find them quickly. We have a lot of people watching yet, Sarah?
We do. According to YouTube, 179 watching.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'd like to say hello to Lily Mock. She's 10.
Oh, hey, Lily.
And this is her art class today.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome, Lily. Welcome.
Yes. And we have a couple of people waiting for her art supplies to arrive.
Ooh, fun.
I think someone said T-square and some paper, some watercolor paper.
Nice. The T-square can be very, very handy to have. I saw a new invention showcased at the Craft and Hobby Association this weekend. I didn't go to the show, but I saw the videos. Melody Lane and Craft Test Dummies have really great videos on the stuff that was there. And it was like a fancy laser kind of like level that you could like shoot a line of laser across your, scrapbook page or painting or whatever, so you could line things up. And I was just thinking, it's like going to be a $70 T-square, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
You do the same thing with a T-square.
Heba Rezek wants to know if we can use acrylics for this.
You can, if you're working on paper, you can thin down your acrylics as much as you want. You don't have to worry about the 30% rule that you generally have with acrylics. This is way too orange, so I'm going to kick it back with a little bit of that blue.
Shelly Parchman, what colors of paint do you need for a basic watercolor set?
I like to have a warm and a cool version of each primary. So I like to have like a cadmium red, which is an orangey red, a rose red, or a quinacridone magenta, or a alizarin crimson for a cool red. I like to have a cadmium yellow for a warm yellow, and I like to have a cad yellow light or a lemon yellow for a cool yellow. And for blues, I like an ultramarine blue and then like a Prussian blue. What I'm doing here is lifting up some of the highlights just by cleaning my brush off, coming back in and lifting some color away. For neutrals, I like to have burnt sienna, I like to have yellow ochre, and I like to have sap green. Now you can substitute those colors, like you can mix your own colors to get similar to a sap green, or to get the same shade as a sap green or burnt sienna, but they granulate so beautifully, and they're just so nice on their own. I would recommend picking those up, but I would also recommend learning how to mix your colors.
Louise Edsel, what weight arches is best?
I'm using the 140 pound. I have used the 300 pound as well. It's really expensive though, and the only benefit would be, like, I guess if you're working really big and you don't want to bother stretching it and you don't want it to warp, I would think if you're doing smaller things, 140 pound is sufficient. 90 pounds really thin. You really need to stretch that if you're going to use a 90 pound. And stretching is when you soak it, and then you soak the paper for like 10 minutes and you lay it down on a plywood or wooden board, and then you tape it down with gum tape or staples, and then you let it dry. And so then you have this drum tight surface to paint on.
Diana Nips, what color pink red are you using?
I am using rose red, but you can use quinacridone magenta, you can use alizarin crimson, you can use the Maya red that's in the Turner set. You just probably need a little bit. The Maya red is a little bit weaker, so but you don't need very much of it, so that would be fine to use. Any sort of pinky red.
Amanda Patterson, what is the best way to learn how to mix colors?
To make a color wheel and start mixing. Just play in your journal or on cheap paper if you need to, and trying it. It's the best way to learn. See what your colors do when you mix them together.
You can always start over.
Yep, that's right. And use cheap paper if you're worried about ruining your good stuff. Anytime I get like a puddle of color, I'm just setting my I'm just wiping my brush off and setting it in that puddle to soak it up. This will even out a lot as it dries, even though it looks a little splotchy now. Don't worry, it'll be fine.
Heather Crisp, where do you get your paper from?
jerrysartorama.com. And I know you're probably like, oh yeah, they're sponsoring, but honestly, I order it from Jerry's. And actually, they have a sister site. If you buy a ton of stuff, it's Art Supply Warehouse, and I used to order a lot from them too. But I usually don't need the quantity that I need to get from Art Supply Warehouse, so I get it from Jerry's.
What do you think about Pro Markers?
I think they're good. They're now rebranded under the Winsor & Newton name, so they're more expensive now. They used to run about $2.75 a marker, regular retail, and now they're $4.99 a marker. So that's kind of the drawback, is that they've gotten more expensive now that they're rebranded. But they're a good marker. I think they blend well, and now they also have the brush tip Pro Marker, which is a really nice responsive brush tip. So, definitely a cheaper alternative to Copics, especially if you can find them on sale.
Tips on drawing stuff that actually looks like stuff.
What do you mean, as opposed to what I usually do?
No, I mean what I do. Ooh.
You know what? A great tip is to trace. Trace and see, because sometimes your brain will look at, and this is just the blue, and now look at this. This is that same blue and brown that I used here for the shadow, but look how dark it is because there's less water. So see, those are powerful colors, guys. You can get a really big assortment of colors there. Tracing, like if you put a piece of, if you take a dry erase marker and you look out your window and you draw what you see, just stand in one spot, don't move your head, and just draw on your window with a dry erase marker what you see, because your brain will tell you what you think you ought to see, not what you actually see. So the act of tracing, like holding up a piece of plexiglass and drawing on it with a dry erase marker, that is such a helpful exercise. So then when you go to start drawing, you're going to actually draw what's really there and not what your brain sees. And also timing yourself, like say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 minutes drawing this, and then stop. Set a timer if you have to. Set the timer on your phone if you have to. And that will kind of get you over the drawing what your brain thinks you see instead of what you actually see.
Naeem Mezid, alternative to palette knife for mixing acrylics.
Alternative to palette knife, you could use like an old credit card, maybe cut it like into smaller strips and use that to mix them up.
Louise Edsel, what is transfer paper graphite?
I'll show you. I've got some. Okay, you probably can you reach that since the graphite paper that's kind of sticking out right there. Yeah.
That big package of graphite paper.
Yeah. It is a sheet. It kind of feels like tracing paper or like a wax paper that's got graphite on one side, and you lay it down and you transfer you lay it dark side down, and then you put your pattern you want to trace over it. Then you draw over your pattern, and it releases the graphite onto your paper. And you can find it at Jerry's Autorama. You can find it at any arts and crafts store. You can even make your own by taking some tracing paper and scribbling over on the back with a stick of graphite or an old pencil or something, just covering it with the lead. But I'll tell you, the pre-made stuff, it will last. I can have a sheet last me for years. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of putting in some of the shadows for the parasol. The parasol that she's holding, just kind of getting the bamboo parts in pretty loosely, because I don't want this to be the focus of the picture, but I do want some of it in. Being very loose about it. Hopefully my hand's not in the way.
More tea, please. Tips on how to paint hair in watercolor.
The tip, I think a good tip is probably working light to dark. Like when we start working on her hair, I'm actually going to start with like an underwash that's got some blues in it. So that way, when we get the highlights, because this girl's got black hair, you'll see that kind of like shiny blue undertones. And I didn't do that in the other one. And that's one of the things I want to correct. Let's see, is her skin dried yet? Now I do have my heat gun here, so hopefully it's not too loud. I don't think it was too loud the last time I did it, but I'm just going to dry up her skin tone. And hopefully you can still hear us if we answer questions. Are there any questions or chats going on right now?
Definitely lots of chats. Not any questions for the moment.
Okay.
I say for the moment. I'm sure.
You really want to make sure that skin is dry before you paint next to it. Okay. It doesn't take very long. Now I'm going to use my, this is a number 20 flat. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm going to use this to wet the background. So I'm wetting pretty much any place that would be the parasol area. Just being really careful not to go over the skin if I can help it. Because we're gonna mix some purple for the background, and that's going to be a pretty intense color. And we wet the paper anytime we want our paint to flow. And you can go around the like the details with like right around the face and the hair and stuff with a round brush, so it's a little bit easier. Sometimes I'll even spray, as long as I can keep it away from the areas I've already painted. And sometimes I'll actually spray an area if I feel like it's getting too tight and I don't like how detailed it is.
Alex Stanny Weber, what is the best oil paint brand?
Oh boy. Well, probably some I've never tried. Cinnamon Cooney's always talking about Michael Harding. I haven't tried his paints. I tried the Geneva paints and I really like those. They're kind of expensive though. Winsor Newton Artists is a really nice oil paint. But Winsor Newton Winton is a nice paint too, and that's like more of like a student grade. It's a grade paint. Not really student grade. It's kind of like, I know a lot of professional artists that use it, but it's not as expensive as the artists. Gosh, there's a lot of really good paints. There's also like the water mixable oils, like the Artisan, and the let's see, gosh, a lot of different companies have the water mixable. Even the Reeves brand has a decent water mixable oil, and those are very inexpensive. So there's a lot of really good ones out there, and I don't really notice as much of a quality difference as I do in watercolors, and maybe that's because I mostly paint in watercolors, so I'm really I'm more experienced in seeing, you know, the qualities of the paint and paper and everything, but I really don't notice as much of a difference with oils. I do like the Geneva ones though. Those are nice.
W. Loderzik 195. Every time I try to mix gray with ultramarine and burnt sienna, it always looks either too blue or too brown. Do you have any tips on making it look more balanced?
Well, maybe the brand that you're using has different undertones, but I would just keep trying, and maybe like start a new batch if you like end up having a ton of it. That way you don't have to overcorrect so much. I find if it's too brown, you add a touch more blue. If it's too blue, you add a touch more brown. That's pretty much what I do, and then I alter how cool and warm it is just by adding more blue or more brown.
Let's see. Anna Banana, what's your opinion on water-soluble oils?
I like the cleanup. I like the ease of use. I don't like the feel of them as much as like when I paint with oil paints. I really enjoy the texture of them, and I don't feel like the water soluble oil paints quite have that buttery consistency down.
Oh, buttery. Who doesn't like buttery?
But I prefer them over like acrylics. Like if I was to have to pick between a water mixable oil and acrylic, I would prefer water mixable oils. But still, I mean, you still have to, there's still oil paints, and you still have to clean your brushes properly, and they do a little bit of an odor, not bad, but I like them. They just, if you have no problem with solvents, I would say stick with the regular oils. I don't really have a problem with it, but I do have kids and pets, and I really don't want that much solvent in my house. I don't like to deal with it a lot of the time.
Let's see, Artsy Lulu. This is more of an electronics question, but do you have a recommendation on a camera best for picking up fine art details in video photos for an amateur?
Well, I really, you know, your cell phone probably has a decent camera on it. I was just experimenting with mine the other day because I have some plans to travel later on this year, and I don't want to have to bring my regular camera. So if you have a smartphone, try that first. I just found out that the camera on my Samsung or Alcatel, it's an Alcatel One Touch. I don't know what brand makes that, but it even has the pause record feature that I like that my Samsung camera has. So yeah, I would recommend trying that first. And then the camera I usually shoot with, not for the live shows, because the live shows I have to use I'm using a Logitech webcam for, but on my regular tutorials, I use a Samsung F90. I think it's HMX F90, and I like it because it has a pause feature. So if I need to dry something, or I need to stop recording for a minute, I can just pause it and then not make a new file, and it makes it a lot easier to edit or to even upload directly to YouTube if, you know, everything else is fine with it. So that's my recommendation, just for ease of use. It's probably not, it's not the most detailed camera you're ever going to find, but for ease of use, you can't beat it.
S. Young, Lindsay, did you get the link I sent you on my craft room tour on my channel?
Oh, I don't think so. Did you send it? How did you send it?
Didn't say. I just asked if you got it. Susanna Paul, are we ever going to have live Ask a Crafter again?
Maybe. I've got oh, speaking of live, I'm going to be on this Crafty Life Live next week with Melody and May from May Made It and Melody Lane Designs. So
yay.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting because it's on a Monday, which is it's a school holiday, so that will be interesting.
Well, you can always ship them off to my house for a couple hours.
I might do that. I already told them you will not be on the computer or using any bandwidth that day.
They can come over, bring the dog. It'll be like there's nobody here because there won't be anybody here.
And I'm just having my mix a little more blue as on this, and it's kind of shiny, so it might be hard to see when I tip it. So I have a little more blue in my mix over on this side of the face for the shadow.
Valerie Connell, how can you tell which watercolors will stain the paper because they are mineral based?
The ones that stain tend to be the ones that are dye based, or the ones that yeah, like plant dyes or other dyes. So look at the color. If it's super vibrant, chances are it's going to stain. If it's more earthy looking, the particles are bigger. Generally, they're going to sit on top. So like your Verdian green, I mean, that's really bright. It's going to stain. But like a yellow ochre and burnt sienna, those are much lighter colors. They're not going to stain. I just painted. And if you paint somewhere you don't mean to, just press down and lift up with a clean paper towel.
Sammy Brown, every time I paint with watercolor, the paper peels. Is it the brush or my pressure?
If the paper's peeling, it could be a brush. If you're using like a hog brush, like an oil painter's brush, then the brush is too stiff for the paper. But if you're just using like a regular brush like I am, or a synthetic brush like this, then you probably have inexpensive paper that's just not really designed to stand up, because sometimes they'll sell watercolor paper, but it's really not designed. It really doesn't have enough sizing in it to handle what it needs to handle. I'm painting some of the yellow ochre right up into the purple to kind of soften that, and I just give it like a looser look.
Paul Age One Art, how would you compare Turner paints to M. Graham, QOR, Holbein, Yarka, etc.?
Okay, well, I don't have Holbein. I would say they dry a little harder in the palette than M. Graham, M-Gram being my go-to standard that I use most of the time. Yarka, I would say they're pretty comparable to Yarka, the Yarka Professional, not the Yarka Student. I'd say they're higher quality than Cotman. I don't use the Winsor Newton Artist very much, so I couldn't compare to that. They're, you know what, they're a lot like the Da Vinci, and I like those as well. So hopefully that helps. I finally, there's a couple colors, the Maya Blue, which we're going to be using a little bit later, the Maya Yellow, and the Maya Red are much more like Japanese colors. They're a little bit more opaque and a little bit, what's the word? They're kind of like almost slippery feeling. They're kind of have this gel-like feeling to them, I think because they're Japanese colors. So that's kind of something of note, I guess.
S. Young, the one that asked about the video, realized that they sent it to the Frugal Crafter community on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming you should keep an eye out.
Yes, probably in the messages. I don't. Sometimes I don't get there. Try to check that in the evening.
Getting behind on questions again.
I'm going to go in and start painting the kimono. I'm just going to be a little careful over here on the shoulder area because it is a little wet there. Well, I can zap it for a second. All right, that should be good. Now I'm going to mix up a nice dark color for the kimono. I'm going to go back to my ultramarine blue and my burnt sienna.
Sue Clark, just starting. Should I use cold press or hot press?
Probably cold press. It's your most versatile paper. Hot press is really good if you do stamping. If you do a lot of, like, if your goal is to do like pen and ink, cold press can be a little rough on your nibs. So if you're going to do pen and ink or really, really detailed things or stamping, hot press is a better choice. But if you just want a general purpose paper that's going to work for most things, I would go with the cold press. And rough, I mean, or if you only want to do landscapes, rough is really fun to paint landscapes with, but I think it's a little trickier to get the hang of.
Whitney Temple, I know you have a spot you sell your pieces, but have you ever dreamed about having your own gallery?
Oh no, not unless I wanted to lose grand amounts of money.
You could use the kids, they could run it for you. Free
No.
labor.
They don't work for free. Have you met my children?
Oh, well, I guess you're right.
Yeah, and they'll be selling Girl Scout cookies in Tim Horton.
Oh, that's right. It's Girl Scout cookie time. I'm getting hit up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're all selling something.
Sophie, hello. Use Canson student watercolor paper in 350 grams, which I think is a good quality paper. But when I paint in it with watercolors, the paper is peeling off in little pieces. What can I do?
150 grams, that sounds really light.
350.
350, and it's watercolor, huh?
Canson student watercolor paper.
It sounds like a paper, like the paper really isn't designed for really heavy wet washes. And sometimes you get that with student papers. Usually Canson's pretty good though. So it could be you're using a brush that's too stiff.
Lily Mock, how do you keep your paper from waving? Do you stretch it first?
Well, this here is a block, and I'll show you the lid to it. So it's an Arches block. So what that means is that all four sides of the paper, it's like a paper pad, but on all four sides it's glued down, and there's just a little gap that you can slide a butter knife into, and or a palette knife, and you can cut it off the top. So that keeps it from warping too badly. I'm getting down to the end. I've only got a couple sheets left, and sometimes when you get down to the end, it starts to kind of like, mine started to pop off. If you look right there on the side already, it's already starting to pop off. So that does help. You can also tape down your paper with painter's tape on all four sides. That'll help a bit. If you want it absolutely straight, absolutely flat, then you want to soak it. And I do have and stretch it. And I do have a video on my channel on how to stretch watercolor paper. I'll try to link it up after the video, or you can go to my channel and search it. But basically, you soak the paper, and then you use gum tape, which is like the tape they use at the post office. It's like a dry tape, and then you wet it, and then you press it to your paper. It's like a craft paper tape. and you use that to stick down your wet paper, and when it dries, it's like drum tight. It's really fantastic. I'm kind of lazy. I don't take the time to do that very often, but it is a really great solution. And then you can get by with painting on the cheaper, lighter white paper. So like maybe you can't afford Arches 140 pound or afford a block of Arches paper, but the 90 pound is a lot cheaper, and you can, you know, get by with that if you stretch it without any like loss of quality.
Cyan Pinks, do you have any tips on starting with watercolors? I started a year ago and still suck.
Oh, practice. I mean, they say it takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, to learn something. So, I mean, practice. It's a fun thing, you know, it's fun to practice it. I would say learn to mix colors, and it all works in, I mean, design, like everything's going to help everything else. So if you like to rubber stamp, you know, maybe try coloring some of your images with watercolor pencils or watercolors. If you like to color in coloring books, try different color combinations to see what works together and what doesn't. You know, everything's going to help everything else when you're doing like visual art stuff. So, you know, try to look at colors, notice when in your world around you, see what colors things really are instead of what you think they are. Like when you look at a tree, don't say, okay, there's a tree, it's got green leaves. Really look at the colors that you see. A lot of it just comes from just paying attention and, you know, really looking at your surroundings and, you know, absorbing as much as you can. Because once you start doing more art, you start seeing things in a more artistic light. Don't be afraid of the water. I see people really afraid to use water.
Ashley Schott, can you do another brusho tutorial?
Yes, I'm actually going to be using there's a new pigment paint that I've just received. It's Nuance. It's by Magenta, and I'm planning on trying that really soon.
Kim Sim 7, how would I sell something like this on watercolor paper?
Sell it?
Yes.
I wonder if she means like where to sell it, or
I'm not sure.
Framing it wise, or well, what I do for my watercolors generally is I put them in, I mat them and put a backer board on, and then I put them in a clear bag. You can get them online from Jerry's. They're, you know, you can get them like in the size that your mat is. I try to get basic sizes, and then just slide it in there with the mat, and I put it in like a print rack to sell, or you can frame it under glass. It's hard to get, sometimes it's hard to get your money out of your framing when you're selling your work, so just keep that in mind. But there, or you could pop it up in like an online shop and just say, you know, sold without mat or frame, so you don't even have to deal with that. So it's completely up to you. A lot of people sell on Etsy. I have a little shop. I just put my stuff in my shop. After I've got a bunch matted, I take them down and put them in there to sell. I hope that is what she means. I'm not exactly sure on the question.
Adelina Gabriella Vison, is 160 gram M2 or 210 gram M2 paper too thin for watercolor?
I think a standard watercolor weight for paper is 300 grams per square meter. Taking a little bit of the yellow ochre and my rose red and just underpainting a couple of these flowers up here. I wouldn't go lighter than a 300 grams per square meter paper, which is 140 pound typically. It doesn't exactly correlate with American weights and measurements, but that's pretty close. You want something that's not going to disintegrate when you paint on it, and it's not going to completely buckle. So I just put a mix of yellow ochre and rose red there. I would, honestly, you can waste a lot of money buying bad watercolor paper. I would stick with like a Strathmore 400. The 300 in the yellow package is nice. It's worth spending a little bit extra getting the 400. Or Canson Montville, that's pretty affordable. Or, Arches, you can't go wrong with Arches. So if you see like a great deal, but you have to buy like 50 sheets of it or whatever, but it still brings it down to a decent price, you're not going to be disappointed with Arches. So, that's always a safe bet too.
Sammy Brown, Lindsay, you have inspired me to paint. I've been suffering with depression and anxiety for years.
Oh.
You have created a release for me. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Scottish
Nice
Bloom, I have heard you and other artists say your painting sometimes goes through an ugly phase. How did you learn the difference between an ugly phase and a need to start over?
I think a lot of paintings, especially like pastels, they go through a really ugly phase before they're done.
The ballerina was looking rough there when you did the ballerina. I was like,
how's she gonna salvage that one? You know, the thing is, I don't think you really learn when it's gonna, you know, until you have some experience. I think it's hard to tell whether you've ruined it or it's gonna come back around. The thing that I do know is that once my painting hits the ugly phase, I feel like, well, I got nothing left to lose now, so I feel very free about it. So I would say, yeah, I don't think there's ever a point where it's really past the point of no return, because with mixed media, you could always go over it with colored pencils or pastels and just do something completely different with it. We're going to start some shading on the face now, and I am going to a smaller brush. I've got a number 8 round, and I'm going to mix up some shadow colors. I'm going to go with my burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine.
Lily Voodoo, have you ever used Canson Moulin du Roi 140-pound cotton paper, and what do you think of it?
I haven't, but if it's 100% cotton, it's probably pretty good. I added a touch of blue to my mix because it was looking a little too orange. And I'm going to go in the darkest areas of the face. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to put down some color, and then I'm going to come back in with a damp brush and spread it. So this can be a little scary.
Louise Edsel, for pen and ink, what pens do you recommend? Microline Studio Series, okay?
I don't know if I don't think I've used that brand. I like the Microns. Those are really nice.
That might have been what she meant.
Maybe.
It came out micro. I didn't think to maybe it was Micron until you said that.
Yeah, that's a good chance that it is Micron.
How long, Tressa Jones, how long have you watercolored for?
I started taking watercolor lessons when I was 7.
And you're 25 now, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still 23.
Mm.
Oh, not for a while.
Well, I was just thinking, I was looking at this portrait yesterday after I finished it. I'm like, you know, I have not improved my portraiture skills since I was like in high school. I still paint portraits the way I would in high school because I haven't practiced it. You know, I have no right to be better at it because I haven't practiced it.
Yeah, it just didn't magically make itself better over the years?
No, it didn't. But that's something to think of. You know, you ask most people, they start drawing as an adult and they get frustrated because they draw about the same way they did when they were 10 because that's when they stopped practicing. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're drawing. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. You are where you are, and you know you can get better, you know, but don't set unrealistic expectations. Enjoy the process and practice.
Mine 1845 for oils pastels. I've tried your baby oil technique, but for some reason it doesn't work. What could I be doing wrong, or is there another way of blending them?
You could use paint thinner. Water, I find that colored pencils blends really well with baby oil. For oil pastels, like not the water soluble ones, but the traditional oil pastels, I find that paint thinner works really well, or Gamsol, which is it's a type of like brush cleaner, paint thinner that a lot of colored pencil artists use. That works pretty well with the oil pastels. Heat will blend them.
Kelly Hoff, I was wondering where you buy the gum tape used for stretching paper. I haven't been able to find it.
If you can find like an old-fashioned butcher shop, they'll have it in like the 1-inch rolls. Otherwise, I mean, get the thicker stuff, which is more expensive, at any art supply store or the post office. What you want is gummed paper tape. It's like it looks like craft paper, and it's got a shiny side that once you wet it, it becomes adhesive. It is a little more difficult to find. It's a lot more expensive at an art supply store than it is at like post office. It's usually sold as like a shipping supply.
So maybe Staples, would they have something similar?
Oh, they might. I'm not sure though. It is still kind of a little unusual. Add a little bit of more blush to that cheek there so I can blend it in.
Caitlin Brown, do you like every art piece you make? How do you persuade yourself to see the good points when all you can see is the mistakes or things you don't like?
Honestly, putting it away and looking at it the next day helps the most, I think.
Michelle Z, will you do a video of how to paint starry sky in watercolor?
Starry sky in watercolor. Maybe I can add it to the list. You might need to remind me, Sarah, after the show to write down the list. I do have a request list on my website. If you just once you click over there, the link is in the description of all my videos. There's a requests tab. Just click that and leave a comment on that page.
Pearberry, I love watercolor but want to experiment with gouache. Any tips for starting with gouache? It would be 2 weeks in a row. I got it right.
Yes, let the record show.
I'm nerding.
With gouache, I would say, because it's you can kind of use it like watercolors or like oils or acrylics. You can use it thick as long as you have like a rigid support, or you can use it thinned and watered down like watercolors. I would say just play with it, and just remember that you can layer lighter colors on top if you make a mistake. So if you're painting this portrait and you want to have highlights, you could do that with gouache afterwards. So you can always go back in and add the highlights.
Moralist Ruth, question. What do you think of brushes with deposit? They are better? Please speak slowly because I'm Spanish and my English is very bad.
I don't know what she means by deposit. Maybe that is something. Yeah, she could just come back and say with deposit. I don't know what that means.
Heather Dewey Pettit, would living in a humid region affect completed works? Would it warp even after stretching during the painting process?
It shouldn't. If it does buckle a little bit, it wouldn't buckle much, and if it does, it would come right out. Getting a little bit of a hard line up there, so I'm just going to smooth that out.
And back, Louise Edsel, she asked about the micron pens. I said micro, she did need micron.
Oh, she did, yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to put a little bit of shadow above the nose here. So we're kind of hitting the ugly stage of this painting right now. So people have like,
that face is lovely. I don't know. The white eyes is really.
Yeah, maybe we should put some irises in there. They're looking a little. This is where we're going. This is where we're gonna be.
This is where it's ending up, people.
Yeah.
Stay with her.
Might be more than an hour. Actually, I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush for the eyes. Hopefully, it's not.
Pearberry, does anyone know a good pen liner that can get through thick layers of color pencil without clogging up?
Get through?
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming for detail work.
I think most pens won't stick to colored pencil, and like alcohol pens will pick up the pencil, and you could ruin your pens. I think I would try to get like a maybe like a harder colored pencil. Maybe go like with a very thin from Prismacolor and kind of put that down on top. That might help. You might need to like kind of heat the pencil a little bit first, like you used to with your eyeliner back in the day. You know, you'd heat the eyeliner on a light bulb before you put it on, so you could get maximum.
If you had your hair dryer out.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. JPC13 Art has requests for an oil painting live show and a colored pencil live show.
Ooh, probably I could do the oil painting, the colored pencil, just because if I do anything too small, colored pencil ends up being take a long time if I'm doing it big, and the quality of the webcam, if I have to zoom in, it isn't as crisp. Did she get back to us on what she meant by deposit?
Well, I'm way behind again, like I was last week. We have 244 people watching right now, so I'm trying to keep up.
I'm doing the underpainting on the hair with that. I'm taking some of the Maya blue, which is what I used on that flower. I don't know if I stopped and explained it at that point. Adding it to some of the brown I already have just to knock it back a little bit. But I'm putting that in underneath so I'll be able to have that for highlights and whatnot.
Diane Nips, how do you tell when to stop before you overdo your painting? And what is your favorite brand of watercolor right now?
Oh boy. Well, for I usually overdo it, and then once I get to that one step over where I thought, oh, I wish I stopped, then that's where I stop. So I usually don't stop right at when I should. I usually go one step over, and then unless I paint it again, then I might. Although with this one, the other one, I was thinking I didn't do enough, so I actually am doing more on this one. You know, something else sometimes I'll do, especially if it's something that I'm doing for a client, is that if I'm not sure, I will wait until the next day. I'll get it to like where I think it's almost done, but it needs a little something, and I'll wait till the next day, and then I'll look at it, because then your hindsight will be so much better the next day, or look at it in a mirror or something. But giving it a little bit of time, giving your eyes a break from it, coming back when you're fresh, it really helps.
Brittany Higgs is requesting a creative Valentine's Day gifts tutorial.
Oh, there'll be lots of Valentine's tutorials.
You just put one up with the wreath that you have
Yep.
on your door.
Yep, that's right.
Which is cute, by the way.
Thank you.
That deco mesh, man.
I know, and that's the Sisal deco mesh. That's it's like a natural fiber.
Yeah.
So it was a little different to work with. Have you ever worked with that stuff?
I have. We didn't have it in. We had the burlap, which is similar to the Sisal stuff, but yeah, it's definitely it's different than working with the original. Because I used to do all the deco mesh wreaths at my job at the craft store. I was the deco mesh wreath girl. Paul Age One Art says that Jerry's Artorama sells gummed artist tape.
Awesome. Visit them first.
Ooh, telephone.
Oh, the telephone's ringing. I think a little answer machine. Get that?
Answer machine's not in here, so.
Yeah, so just bear with us for a few minutes.
Danielle Grader, I am having an issue with getting the paint to move and blend on the paper. I'm using either Cotman or whole bean paint on Strathmore paper. Any thoughts as to what is going on? Love your videos, all your videos.
Thank you. It sounds like probably your paper's not wet enough. I don't know what Strathmore you're using, but if you're using the one with the yellow label, it does not, things don't move as well. The texture of that paper is really rough. Even though it's a cold press, it kind of almost has this like, it reminds you just like of a tractor has backed over it a few times. That's like the texture of that paper. I know that's harsh, but that's what it looks like. It looks like
it's just the mental image that popped into my head.
Now, what are they doing over in the Strathmore factory making that yellow brand paper anyway? But it does. It has that kind of like tractor tire print on it, and the paint can get caught on it and not move so well. And I also find that it kind of buckles a little bit more because of that. So if you add more water and that's not helping, because the paint should be fine. Also, mixing it on your palette into kind of puddles before you add it will help it blend and move. So I would look at those things and see if that helps by trying more water and like also making your paint a little juicier. If that's not it, then it must be the paper. Try like a Canson Montville. That's a heavily sized paper, and your paint really moves well on that. I was noticing some hard edges on the skin, so I just re-wet the area, and I'm tapping in some more color and just letting it blend.
K-More 919, Kurataki Gansai Tembi. I probably butchered that.
Nope, that's right.
Really? Yes. And Koi watercolor paints are brands like these Light Fast.
I don't know about those because I can't find Light Fast ratings on them. They're both Japanese brands, and they're very popular right now. A lot of Japanese stationery stuff is really, really popular right now. And the prices for them are also increasing, more like the prices for artist grade paints. So you do have to be careful. I haven't seen any Light Fast ratings. I know sometimes when you think if I'm paying this price, it ought to be Light Fast, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it unless you see a Light Fast rating. So I don't know. I haven't been using them long enough because I do have some Koi and some Gansai Tambi. I haven't used them enough to see if they fade or not.
Louise Edsel says that Mary Artist also has gummed tape for under $3.
Okay.
So there's a couple places for people to go look. Linda Parsons, are you going to do more videos on drawing for all levels?
Oh, I haven't done a drawing video in a long time. Honestly, I hadn't thought about it. I am doing a colored pencil one this weekend, and they will be drawing. Actually, I don't know if I'll be using this or not, but this is what it's like to be an artist. You see somebody's not eating breakfast on the table, and you can't throw it away because you think, oh, that'd be a pretty still life. So I had this brilliant idea 3 days ago. Now my this tangerine peel is all like dehydrated and curling, and it's probably going to get some mold on it before I'm done. Sitting there like, I can't throw that away. That's art.
I can draw it. Mind 1845. Would you recommend ironing watercolor paper after it's been warped?
You can. What I do is put it between a couple pieces of copy paper and then I iron it.
Caitlin Brown, do you have any good suggestions for painting eyes and eyelashes without them turning into a blob or mess?
Letting things dry, like I've got the irises done, but I'm letting it dry. I'm gonna let that dry before I go in with anything else. So that's why I'm skipping around so many different places so things can dry. So what I'm going to do now is take some of that Maya blue that I used up there in the hair. I'm going to use it on her eyelids at some point. I'm taking that Maya blue and I'm taking some, because that's more of a green base blue than a purple base blue. And then I'm going to add some yellow ochre to it to make my green rather than taking another yellow. This isn't going to make a very bright green. It's going to be very olivey, but I want it to match everything else that I'm doing here. And I did with the little leaves first.
Madison Hartford. Lindsay, do you have any tips for letting go while painting? I find that I tense up and I'm afraid to paint and it makes my work look sloppy and I'm never pleased.
Well, just know that nobody ever has to see it. It's not like you're a musician and once it's, out of your instrument, everyone's seen it and heard it, and that's what it is. You have countless times to redo or throw it away if you're not happy with it. So I think that's a big thing. There's a huge trend right now with adult coloring books, and we've talked about it before. And the thing I think that's really great about it is that you can play with your coloring skills. You can play with color combinations in a very non-threatening way. So maybe doing an exercise like that to loosen up before you begin painting. You can say, oh, I remember when I used that shade of purple and teal together. It was so pretty. I want to use that on a bouquet of flowers. Or, you use that to build your experiences for other art you want to do. And it can really help you loosen up, especially if you do it before you begin what could be like a very precious painting. And don't let your supplies be too precious. If you can't bear to paint on a sheet of Arches watercolor paper because it's too expensive, don't buy Arches watercolor paper. Buy Canson Montville. Buy something that's still decent quality but cheaper so that you're not going to be afraid to use it. We're going to use our fancy piece of broken up credit card here and scrape in some veins on these leaves while we're right here.
JPC 13 Art, other than watercolor, what medium do you think you are best at?
Oh boy. Probably oil. I don't do it nearly enough, but probably oil. I do like colored pencils and watercolor crayons a lot too. I mix media because I can't decide actually. Mix media, I can't decide.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
April Liney, are you using white watercolor paint?
Nope, not today. I try not to actually. Sometimes it really is a painting saver, because the painting's gonna really be unusable unless I go in and use some white. But I generally try not to use white because I find that it dulls the look of the paint. When you have the sparkle, when you have the colors transparent, the light has to go down through the paint, bounce off the paper, and then come back to your eyes. And that's why watercolor is so vibrant, because you have that sparkle and that transparency and that vividness. So when you add white, it kind of blocks the light before it can go down through the paper and reflect back up. So I try not to. It's always there as an option. That's why I look at it as kind of like a safety net, but I try not to use it if I don't have to.
Laura Burgos, the lady regarding paintbrush with deposit probably is referring to water brush with barrel that
Oh,
holds water.
gotcha. Oh, I hope
sense.
she's still here listening. Was it what do I think of it? What do I think of them, or was it a recommendation?
Well, I don't remember. Look, it was kind of way up there. Let's see if I can find it.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about both. Okay, so that makes sense. Thank you so much, because I didn't understand what she meant. So let me see. I probably have some. Oh, good. I have a couple that I would recommend. Okay. Look at that, right within reach because of my modular DIY storage. Is a video on that. A shameless plug. Okay, so I've got a couple different versions here. This version is probably the #1 best for your budget because there is a pack of 4.
Okay, it was what do you think of brushes with deposit?
I think they're great for traveling or for using watercolor
she has to
pencils.
speak slowly because her English isn't good.
Okay, I will try.
When you are excited, Lindsay.
Nobody can understand me. Okay, so here is a couple of versions. I'm just seeing if I also have a Prima version. I don't see the Prima one, but the Prima version is also good. So basically what you have here is a brush, a little valve, and you've got a barrel that holds water. This is the Aqua Flow, and this is available at Jerry's Autorama. Well, you can get them individually for about $3 or $4 each, or they have a 4-pack for like 10 or between 10 and 12. And you get different size rounds and a flat, and these are best value. They're decent. The smaller ones come to a nice point. You can't go wrong with this set. This Caran d'Ache one is probably about $10, and it's got a plunger type. You squeeze a little button on the side to release water. It's got a plunger here, so maybe I can show you. I can like push down on the plunger and get like a ton of water, get a bunch of water to come out. And then if I just want a little bit, I just squeeze on the side and it releases a little bit. And then when I go to fill it, I put it under the faucet and I pull back on the plunger. But the nice thing about this is I can collapse it smaller and it will fit in my painting bag. But it is more expensive. It's a more complicated brush. I don't know how many sizes there are of this. There might only be one, but it does come to a decent point and the brush quality is good. This here is probably the most popular. This is a Niji water brush. Again, it's very similar to the Polar Flow or the Aqua Flow here. This is one of the small size ones, and I do believe Niji makes a collapsible one that is smaller. You can take it apart and put a little plug in it if you want to carry it in your small bag. I think like the Koi set of 30 colors comes, or 30 or 36, comes with a collapsed one, which is really nice if you're going to get that paint set anyway. But it's the same idea. There's a little sponge valve in there, and you fill it up by squeezing it or popping out that little cap and filling it under the faucet. And these retail for about $7 or $8 a piece. So there's 3 choices. I would say probably best quality would be the Caran d'Ache, but it is also the most expensive. Otherwise, I would get the 4-pack of the Aqua Flows because it does bring the cost way down. So, and there's another phone. Oh my gosh.
Not my phone. I shut my ringer.
Well, yeah, it's my old cell phone, so it's probably, well, it shouldn't be the school. They have my new cell phone number. Okay, so now I am going to work on the, let's see if that's dry. I can work on the sash. Yeah, I think that's dry. And the sash is kind of done in a rainbow. And I'm going to start with the my rose red here, right at the top. All right. Sarah, could you, I better grab that.
Yep.
I think it's probably a kid.
It could be.
So sorry, guys.
All right. So I'll go through and see if there's any questions I can answer in my limited. Let's see. Yes, Louise, it is a embossing heat gun that she uses, but you can use a hair dryer as well. So kind of what you have, if you have the time, you can always wait for your wet spots to air dry. Okay, I got one question.
Okay, what is that? Oh my gosh.
Was that a child?
No, it wasn't. It was another mom asking if a child wanted to go to a cheering competition tonight. So I was like, I'll ask her when she gets home.
Yes. Pearberry. I was told you can mix white gouache with your existing watercolors and create gouache from that. Is that true?
Yes. It probably won't be as vivid as like an artist's, like a designer gouache from like a art supply, like a artist quality gouache, just because the artist quality gouache has other ways for making it opaque. It'll choose pigments that are very opaque. As opposed to just adding white to the color, so you will get a richer gouache if you're using like an artist gouache, like a Winsor Newton gouache or an M. Graham gouache. But yes, essentially, yes, you can. Now I'm taking the yellow ochre plus that red and giving the next stripe of the kimono here.
Anna Hudson, I'm having a hard time making clouds. What is the best brush to do that?
Did she specify what medium she's working in?
No, she did not.
Okay, well, for watercolor, I like to have a nice big fat round, like this one right here is number 12 round. That does good clouds. Filberts would do good clouds, and a filbert is like a flat brush, but instead of the bristles being like that, they're kind of rounded at the end. Both of those are good options. If you're using oils, you might want to paint on the clouds with a round and then use a mop to soften them, to give them more cloudy looking. That's just yellow ochre straight. Now I'm going to do the yellow ochre plus the Maya blue. Oh, by the way, I have 2 buckets of water here. One is for cleaning my brush. This is the dirty bucket, and this is for getting fresh water for washes. You should always have 2 cups of water whenever you're watercoloring to get the most vivid results.
Let's see. Collage One Art. What is your favorite watercolor resist? Wax pencil, rubber cement, brisket, etc.
Personally, I like wax, just because I don't like to wait for the for masking fluid to dry. I don't really like rubber cement used as a frisket. I think it's a little too unpredictable. I like the Winsor & Newton art masking fluid. Just my own personal preference. I find that it performs much better, and I don't risk like tearing my paper or having it turn yellow like you may with rubber cement. Rubber cement works all right like on cardstock, but on regular watercolor paper, I would much rather have like the Winsor & Newton. And I prefer the tinted masking fluid, just so I can see where I put it. Sometimes you can't see where it is after you've painted it.
Mind 1845. What can you do to prevent your watercolor paint from drying too quickly on the paper to blend?
Wetting the paper twice before you begin. Like sometimes, like if we're doing a sky, I think last week when we did the sky, we wet the paper, then we mixed our color, then we wet it again, so that you get the paper saturated internally, and then you've got pigment externally as well. You got water externally, so the paint will just slide. That's a really good way to do it. I find 100% cotton paper will absorb more water, so therefore it holds more water and it will stay wetter longer. Now right there I've got a hard edge from where I put the ultramarine blue right next to the Maya blue, and I think it's because those Maya colors have a bit of that almost slipperiness to it, that maybe it has some additive in those Maya colors to make it more like a traditional Japanese paint. So I'm just going to kind of go over there and try to smooth it with a little bit more of that Maya blue.
Madison Hartford. I live in Damariscotta, Maine.
Oh,
what
wow.
are your suggestions for craft stores around the state?
Damariscotta, that's southern, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see. So down there, let's see if you go to, how close is it to Portland? Do you know?
I don't. I have to. It's more coastal.
Yeah. Well, coastal, let's see. Honestly, I would go in the yellow pages. If you still have a phone book, if you're, one of those old people like me that still has phone books, if you look in the yellow pages, they'll be listed. And I know there's like Rockland Blueprint, I think has a good art supply section. Obviously online, but yeah, I would just look in the phone book to see what stores are still in operation. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot, and there was never a lot in the state to begin with. So yeah.
Diane Money Goolsby says don't throw out your ugly paintings, make bookmarks like you suggested.
Yes.
And then Lulu Mommy 1000 also says they save them, and they make great paper beads.
Oh yeah.
And you can also use your punches like pattern paper.
Oh yes, great tips.
So don't throw them out. You can keep them and use them. Anne Casillas, can you use Bombay India ink to brush on a stamp to make a waterproof stamp? Will it hurt the stamp as long as I wash it off quickly afterwards?
You can do it and then wash it, but I don't think you're going to get a very good impression, just because the Bombay ink is quite thin. And I'm doing my rainbow backwards because that edge is wet. So by the time I get back up, I think that edge will be dry. That's the only reason I'm doing this backwards.
Kmore919. I'm sorry if I missed it. What's Lindsay's favorite watercolor pan sets?
Oh, pan sets. Let's see. I like the Cotman by Winsor Newton. It's not as expensive as the artist supply, the artist grade Winsor Newton, but it's still a really solid value. That's what I used to teach in the classes that I do. I also love the Yarka professional, the Yarka St. Petersburg. They have 3 sets. I think I have the first one, but I can never really tell because it's really hard to see the names on the colors, but I really like that. They have 3 of those sets. And somebody told me that they've also branded them under the White Knights name and that they're cheaper, but I don't know. I can't verify that for sure, but I do know that that some people have said that. So that's a really nice pan set. So those would be my 2 picks. There's more sets out there, obviously, that I haven't tried. That could get an expensive hobby, testing out watercolors.
Mind 1845. Will liquid latex work in place of liquid frisket?
It should, but I've never used it because that's essentially what the frisket is.
College One Art. Your palette is allowing your paint to mix really well without beading up. Who makes it?
It's Zoltan Szabo, and it is linked up in the video description. And I like the size too. It's a little bit smaller than the palette that I usually use down cellar. I'd say it's probably 9 by 12, or maybe even, let's see, this is 9 by 12. My paper's 9 by 12, so it must be about like 7 by 10. So it's a nice size. I got plenty of room to mix, and you can also use the lid to mix if you don't have enough room here. So yeah, I like that too. And it's not very much money either. I think it's under 20.
Caitlin King wants to know if she can buy this picture.
Sure, just send me just email me at artstudiosofbangor@yahoo.com after the show, and we can arrange that.
Thank you, Shelly. I am all caught up. Shelly noted that I finally got caught up with the questions. Congratulations, we got caught up this week.
Caught up even with a phone call.
Yes. And we're still over 200 watchers right now.
So awesome. They haven't given up on me yet.
No, we're 228 right now. So
nice. Feels weird to paint a rainbow backwards. I'm so used to going in red first, Roy G. Biv. I'm going Verbe Roy. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to say Roy G. Biv backwards.
Louise Edsel would like you to repeat your email address again.
Sure. It is on my website, but it's artstudiosofbangor@yahoo.com. And I feel so old school having a yahoo.com email address, really? But I've had that for like 20 years, I think. I don't know. When did the internet start? I've had it that long because that was my business. I had a teaching studio.
Jacqueline Stevens from Houston says hello.
Hello, Jacqueline. How are you? Thank you so much for the goodies. She sent a bunch of really cool stuff for the girls, for the crafty twins, and she sent some. She's been saving a bunch for plastic packaging, and I'm always using that in my kids' classes for palettes and to sort things out in. So she's like, hope you don't think it's weird that I'm not sending you my garbage. I'm sending you these things because you said to use them in class. So it was very thoughtful of her.
And it's good for the planet.
Yeah. All right. And I want to put a little bit of a wash on the teeth and the whites of the eyes because they wouldn't be really super pure white. So I'm going to do a little bit of ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna again. I mean, it's kind of our go-to neutral. But we got to have it very white, watered down. So you might want to have a paper towel handy in case you get a little carried away with this. I actually will blot my brush on the paper towel just to remove any excess. I just want to give a little bit in there.
S. Young wants to know, how do we send you items?
Well, Jacqueline had my address because she had purchased a painting in the past. I generally don't make that public just because I have a lot of things, and if people have things to donate, I think they can do really well donating locally to their local scouting troops or libraries and stuff. So daycares, yeah. So So I don't have that public.
S. Young just added, like little gifts or things we make, not our bills to pay. Well, that's very nice.
That is very sweet.
I'm sure you have plenty of your own bills to pay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I thought about getting a P.O. box. But I was kind of worried about having too much stuff, and I always feel bad if I can't like give something back. You know what I mean?
You know, people could always take a picture and post it to the
I love
Facebook
that.
community
I
board.
love that when people share a picture of a card they've made and a painting. It's so nice. And the other thing is that I love it because it helps so many people, because other people are inspired and they're like, oh wow, she made that. You know, I could do that. You know, it makes people realize that, oh, anybody can make it. You just need to try. So yeah, I love it when I post it to the community page.
Blanchie Ruby, what do you use to protect work?
I generally will put my finished stuff in a portfolio, just in like a big zippered up portfolio to keep the dust off it until I can mat it and frame it for sale. I'm gonna hit this with the dryer again. Well, actually, I can work on the hands while the face is drying.
Gabriella, how do you fix a mistake with black watercolor?
Well, I typically don't use black watercolor. I mix my own colors so that I can control the shades that I'm going to get. So I'd probably just try lifting it out. I'd go with like I just brush over it with clear water, and then I would just blot it until I removed the offending part of the picture. But that's why I mix my blacks, because then you don't get like if I'm using burnt sienna and ultramarine already, and I mix my darks from those colors, then I shouldn't get anything that's too much of a mistake. Everything should still pretty much go and fit with everything else I'm doing.
Kmore 919, we vacation in Bridgeton, Maine.
Oh, I love Bridgeton.
Do you teach classes during the summer?
No, well, I do a class in a couple workshops in Springfield, Massachusetts at the Heirloom Show, but summer is kind of my time off a little. I mean, I still do my videos, but my kids are home from school, and so
And living in Maine, we have to savor and soak up
totally
as much summer as we get, because it's not here for very long.
Right. Bridgeton is so beautiful, though. Oh, we used to go through there a lot when the kids were little. We go to Storyland and we go through Bridgeton. It's so beautiful.
Nice. That part of the
yes.
It's just, well, it's pretty much nice no matter where you go in Maine. That is the nice thing about being up here.
Yes.
Pretty much wherever you drive, there's a beautiful part to it.
Yeah, don't believe the article the guy from GQ wrote online the other day, the awful, like, why Maine should be sold to Denmark or something, why Maine should not be part of our country.
I had
it was
heard
like,
of this article.
oh, it was
insulting our state. Why?
Yes.
What's wrong with our state that we should be sold?
Well, I don't know. He went to college here for 4 years, so apparently he's an expert on Maine. And
where did he go to college?
I think it was like Bates or Bowdoin or something.
Oh, so
not even up. Not even.
I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah, I said like we're a bunch of backwoods hill people and we're all racist, and it's like, oh, lovely. I actually commented. I said, I don't think you've seen that much of Maine, or you must have gone to the wrong part of Maine then. So yeah, it was pretty brutal.
Well, you know, that's. Where does he live now?
I don't know. Not Maine, thank goodness.
Yeah, I'm glad his negativity's elsewhere. Backwards. Why? Because we don't run around like crazy people all the time?
Apparently. I know, the nerve.
Shelly Parchman, is your watercolor paper perfectly flat, or is it a little wavy when you are done?
It's perfectly flat when I'm done, if it's from a block or if I've stretched it. Sometimes it's wavy if I've just taped it down or I haven't done much to it. But I do work from blocks a lot. I find it's worth a little bit extra money for the convenience.
Well, we have several people who are thumbs upping our state.
Oh, good.
So Carrie Hare says Maine is a fantastic state. I worked for an insurance company for many years, and Maine was my state. I try to get up there as much as possible. That's right, because we're great up here.
We are. The way life should be. They don't just give that slogan to anybody.
That's right.
All right, we should probably give this woman some hair here. Actually, I'll work on the eyes a little bit, I think.
Well, you could give her some tattoos, maybe. You should have shaved her hair and have tattooed her head.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll do that. She's got a big bun. Otherwise, she'd have like no hair and a big bun. It would be kind of strange.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be weird.
She'd have to attach it by some unpleasant means.
Yeah. All right, so again, with my mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, I am going to go in and start adding some details. Now, if you're checking out the reference photo that I'm using, you'll notice it's got very soft focus, and I chose that for a reason because I thought the composition was really fun, and I also thought people wouldn't get too bogged down with shadows if it was a little less detailed. Notice how my paper's dry and I'm resting my hand on the paper so that I have that stability. And I'm also going to go in and put the pupil in, and I'm just preserving the white sparkle there. So that's the thing, like if you were using masking fluid, you could have just put a dot of masking fluid where the eye is. And I like to kind of go back and forth so that when I do to one eye, I do to the other because we want them symmetrical. And I'll also turn my paper so it's a little easier to approach. And sometimes if you work on a piece upside down or you work on it in a different angle, it's much easier to keep it symmetrical because your brain's not telling you what it should look like. You're saying, okay, what it really should look like. You're saying, oh, I just want to make this eye like that eye. I'm not worried about making two eyes that look the same. I'm making this look like that abstract shape instead of saying I've got two eyeballs. I'm so glad that like it wasn't the school calling for like, you know.
Really, yeah, that's true. All kids are intact.
Oh my gosh. Your child is eating a Lego. Please.
Well, hopefully if they haven't eaten a Lego yet, they're old enough to not do it now. Although I suppose if someone dared them to.
I don't know. Boy, it makes a big difference when you get the eyes in.
It does. She looks a little more approachable as a person.
She looks like something from The Exorcist.
No.
Oh my goodness. So I'm usually not. It's usually hard for me to get through a basketball game, but last night, oh my gosh, crazy.
Was it even worse?
No, it was awesome. Actually,
Was
I wish all the games were like this. Holy cow! Yeah, they kind of played some rivals, and both teams won. But the boys' game, it was like they tied. Like the final buzzer rang, and they were tied. So they put 4 minutes on the clock, and I mean, it was just like one would get 1 point because like they do a foul shot. I mean, they were always just 1 point ahead or behind.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, it was crazy. And then like the last shot goes in there. It was like 59-60. And our team was down by 1 point. And that last shot went in, the buzzer rang, the ball is like swirling around the hoop, and then it fell in. I mean, it was like watching Teen Wolf or something. It was like that crazy, you know, TV show movie, like the good guys are finally, not to say the other team was the bad guys, they're perfectly nice children.
Was it like Dodgeball, the underdog story?
Yeah. Totally an underdog story.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, turn the
Scottish Bloom. Do you ever do watercolor vertically?
This is kind of vertical. Is that what you mean? Oh, you mean on an easel? I bet she means. I don't, because I tend to work my paper pretty wet, so it would be sliding all over the place.
Shelley Parchman. Do you have to spray your paintings before selling or anything?
Nope. No, watercolor should be bound. The binder in watercolor paper is gum arabic, and it does a mighty fine job to keep the paint to the paper. But as with any work on paper, it should be protected under glass, or in the case of watercolor, you can actually go under plexiglass or any other acrylic covering that you prefer. So it's nice in that way. Actually, I think that like an acrylic is a little bit more forgiving. I think it prevents it from fading more.
Alex, it's not a paint related question. Do you have any ideas for transparent copier film? I have 4 boxes full of it.
Oh yeah, if you're a crafter, it's really great for making shaker cards.
You can also print on it too.
Yeah, if it's the right kind.
Oh,
You know,
that's true.
if it's
Yeah,
the kind of, if you have the printer, like if it's a laser, if it's a copier one, you probably need to use it on a laser printer. So I just did the teeth of the liner, and then I'm just going in and softening some of those lines. And I'm going to do the gum. I am going to do a little bit of the gums because this is a young girl. I notice younger people, when they're smiling, a lot of times you can see the gums a little bit. So, and also they'll be more teethy, like the front teeth look larger when they're younger. So if you end up aging, if you're doing a portrait and you end up aging somebody, try making their teeth a little bit bigger, or the features a little bit bigger. It makes them look a little younger.
Craft and Bev, when you sell a picture like this, how much do you sell it for? I never know what price I should put on my products that I make.
You know, it totally depends. Something like this that I've painted a couple times, I probably sell for about $35. If it's something I've painted once, it would go for a little bit more. It totally depends on what well, for me, it depends on what I feel the quality of the work is. And like my teaching samples I sell for less because, you know, I've made a couple of them. But something I've like spent days on would obviously be more, and depending on how I framed it. There is a great article that my friend Cinnamon Cooney, the art Sherpa, had shared, and I don't know if she's with us. Is she with us today?
I haven't seen her, but that doesn't mean she's not here. Sometimes she's very quiet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, last time she was here, but she couldn't chat because her husband was on a conference call or something. But she shared a really great formula on how to price, and it's by the square inch, and you get a different amount per square inch depending on your medium and how established you are as an artist. Honestly, I would see what you can, you know, what does your paintings typically sell for, and then kind of use that as a base price. And then kind of, if it's a little bigger or if it took you more time, add a little to it. If it's smaller, it didn't take you as much time, subtract a little bit. I'm just dragging some of this. This is burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine, so it's still pretty brown. I just want to get some of the warmer tones into the hair.
Let's see. Scottish Bloom. What is the difference between an artist and a crafter? Now, that's a good question.
Yeah. Think I just heard this question somewhere. I would think maybe intent. Like I really don't think there's much use in the labels, but I would think like maybe an artist would design their things originally, and a crafter would be. I think the art of something is kind of maybe thinking, designing, deciding, in all the intent that you put into it, and the craft is actually, you know, physically doing it. I really don't see that much of a difference. They might decide by medium if it's a craft or if it's an art, like painting, maybe an art. But I notice like when I go to a craft fair that things that are deemed air quotes art goes for more than stuff that's deemed air quotes craft. I think it's because they think it's a craft, then anybody can do it, and it's not a specialized skill, which is so untrue when you look at some of the needlework and some of the beading and stuff out there. But I think that's the perception that people have. I think it mostly comes down to perception.
I look at it as they're pretty interchangeable.
Yeah.
Especially now, because especially when you get into the mixed media stuff, is you have some of the quote unquote craft stuff that quote unquote artists are doing. You know, it's not, I don't know, I think the lines are a lot more blurred than they used to be.
Yep.
Especially with especially the jewelry making stuff, like people are using the Fimo, people are using the fabric in their jewelry making.
Yep.
People who do cross stitch and needlepoint, like myself, like they're updating, patterns and what you can stitch on and how you stitch. I've seen stuff like people have painted cross stitch patterns on their wall.
Cool.
Or painted a cross stitch pattern on canvas, people are cross stitching stuff like wood and metal and chairs, and so it's I think it's so interchangeable now because just people are really looking, what can we use this old type of craft or creation on, a new item?
Definitely.
Oh, people are looking up your palette here. $15.19 on Jerry's.
Great.
Inside Studio Outback. Some people define art as something that is meant to look good, while craft is something more useful. That's yeah.
That's a definition. I know a lot of art that doesn't particularly look good.
And I know a lot of craft stuff that isn't particularly useful. Like some of my watercolor attempts stashed way back in the corner of my craft room. Let's see, Jack W. I'm trying to sell my artwork on web store. If the site fails to sell my work, where else in the internet do you recommend I could sell my work on?
Oh, Etsy. Etsy is still reigning supreme. If you don't have a following and you need to get your work out, I would definitely go with Etsy. Even though it is, there are negatives to it, I still don't think that you're going to find a place with the discoverability. And it's not as good as it used to be. I mean, granted, people that were on Etsy sooner have way more of an advantage, but it's tough to beat if you don't already have a following. Like for me, going to Etsy wouldn't be that great of an idea. I'd be better off just to open up a Shopify or a Volusion shop or something, because I have a following here rather than trying to compete with every other watercolorist on Etsy. But if you don't have a following, God, that sounds so braggy. I don't mean to be braggy.
You're not braggy, it's the truth. You have a following. For gosh sakes, you have over 200,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. That's a following.
But I think Etsy does a good job at discoverability for people. Amazon is now doing a handmade thing. I don't know how. Do you know anything about the Amazon handmade?
I don't. Actually, we had a question asking if you like the Amazon homemade, the new place. I mean, I've gone on and looked and to see what they have.
I haven't looked, honestly.
I've looked, and they right now they don't have the amount of stuff that Etsy has. But they're also new. They haven't. Yeah. They've been. Or the Amazon homemade just started
not long
before
ago.
Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
So I think maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's that long.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, they are going to work towards definitely broadening their options and what they've got on there.
Yeah. And I would check out richmombusiness.com, even if I think the person that left the comment might be a guy, but I would check out richmombusiness.com because she is all about promoting handmade businesses. And she does have a Rich Mom University. I think that's the only thing she has for sale, but she has so many free trainings online and on her YouTube channel, and just search Rich Mom Business, you'll find it. But she's a friend of mine, and she has awesome advice, and you really can't go wrong for free. And if you're really serious about it, you might. That's so weird though, because I think it was a guy that asked the question, wasn't it?
It was.
So I'm like, well, I wonder. That might be weird. A guy taking Rich Mom University. I don't know if there's any rules.
So.
I don't think.
I say no.
The secret Rich Mom Club. The secret Mom Club.
Kmore 919. I believe she's the one from Damascata. Any craft fairs you recommend as a must attend?
I would probably like the Designing Women, because I think that's all over Maine. United Maine Craftsmen. Those are good. Do you have any ones local? Because if she's local that you've been to that have been really good.
Well, anything for the Maine Crafters. I know the Maine Crafters Association, they do their craft fairs all over the state. So if they do come, that's a juried, people have to get, because I went to the one that they had in Brewer, at the Brewer Auditorium.
Was that United Maine Craftsmen, or was that?
I was the Maine Crafters Association.
Maine Crafters Association.
I think it was one of the two. Now it was one of the two. But anyway, it's jury. So there's some really excellent stuff in there. I got some great Christmas gifts. That's where I got your yarn.
Oh, I love that. That's so pretty.
Yeah, orange.
Up until yesterday, it was my remote holding bowl.
Well, whatever works.
My Corel, the people's crap from the coffee table bowl. What a difference putting the hair in too makes. It just kind of. help us pull it together.
Hi, Chewy. I know. Yes, you can go out in a minute. I know. Life is rough. It's not easy being Chewy, is it? No, it's not.
I feel like I've been painting this for like 3 days.
Well, you're going on an hour and a half.
Oh, sorry guys.
I don't
It's
think
we're in the home stretch.
We are. You know, we can't leave the hair off.
I might have to put a few tendrils or something. She's looking a little pinched.
Severe.
She is looking a little severe. You know what? I'm gonna switch over to the liner because even though it's this liner, let's look at the sizes of these brushes. This liner is a number 2, and this is a number 2 round. So around they're the same size, but since this is a longer end, it's going to hold a lot more paint. It's also going to come to a sharper point because of the way the ends are flagged. So I can actually get a lot more painting without having to reload my brush. And I'm going to put a few just wisps. And I'm just kind of flicking I've got my hand resting on the on my painting because it's dry, and I'm just kind of flicking, and it's not always hitting the paper. I just want such a light flick that it's just going to give me little wisps and not give me a ton of hair.
Alex Capsney Weber, are pan pastels worth the money?
I think so. Only if you use them. I haven't gotten my money's worth yet because I haven't really used them that much, but I think so. When you compare them to other pastels and what you get as far as like how much product comes in it and how much, you don't really have to use a lot in a painting, which is really nice, you know. I got a little carried away with that hair, but I feel like the hair should be a little lower. The title of this painting is Tiny Dancer. She's had a few performances today, that's all.
It's all right.
Some more wispy. You can fake a lot of things with some wispy hair. Got a weird ear? Put some hair in front of it. Just like we all do every day. We fix our weirdness by the little hairdo and a little.
Not me yesterday. Yesterday was a bad hair day. I was like, well, I'm glad it's cold because I just put a hat on and nobody knew except for me when I was home.
That's the way to do it. Okay, let me look back at my picture here. Now we're kind of in the tweaking stage. Oh, we're going to do a little bit more with this. Let's do a little bit with that. We're going to do a little bit of the red and yellow. I took the rose red and the yellow ochre, and I'm just kind of going in and putting in some darker wiggly circular lines here. Technical term. If you have too many hard edges, or you feel like you want to warm it up a little bit more, just clean your brush, grab a little yellow ochre. And you can go and soften some of them and warm up the flower a little bit.
This isn't what you're going to make us do next month, is it?
No, gosh, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be a little.
I think a few of us would probably end up crying.
Yeah, we'll do. I think I might do the calla lilies that I did the other day on the YouTube channel for the painting class.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to go take a peek.
Yeah, I think that would be definitely doable in an hour and a half class at the library.
Yay for free classes!
Yeah,
I still haven't had a chance. I got to crack out my lovely new watercolor set that I got from a lovely Lindsay for Christmas.
Oh, you haven't opened it yet?
I haven't had. I haven't been in my craft room this last month. I just haven't. I go in, I grab something, and I leave. And I've been doing other stuff. I've been on a cross stitch and embroidery kick, which is what I've been doing a lot of. So, and I started a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. So that's kind of been what I've been doing.
That will take up your time.
Regina Hay, Lindsay, I hope one day you will help us experiment with the Peebo moon paints.
Oh, I've heard a couple of people mention that. I don't have any of those.
And, Kim Sims 7 says, yes, Lindsay, we would love to see some Peebo paints.
I will let my friends at Jerry's know. If you guys want to see the P-Bone paints, they'll probably send me some.
I bet they would.
They're pretty awesome. This is what the Having Sponsors does. I'm lucky that you guys don't complain about it, because sometimes some channels people will be complaining, so, oh, but sellouts, having sponsors. It's like, no, sellouts mean that I can do this instead of getting a regular job. You know?
K-More 919. I got, which sets did you get? I got it wasn't the student grade. It was the one in the wooden box. The watercolor paint you got me for Christmas.
Royal and Langnickel wooden box set of pans, which they're kind of hard to find. You don't see the pan sets that often from Royal and Langnickel, but their colors are really nice. And that box, I love that box.
The box is awesome. I just played with the box when I sat down and opened it up. I did play with the box, and I looked at it and I touched everything. And my first goal is to go and make a paint sample sheet to put in the box, so I know what colors are what when I'm painting something. Yeah, making swatches is a great thing to do when you get new paints, because then it kind of breaks the ice too. It's like, well, what do I paint? Well, let's do a paint swatch. Any more questions popping through? No, but people are still chatting. Great. All right, let's see, what else does this person need? I'm going to take a little bit of that Maya blue and a little bit of ultramarine, and maybe add a little detail on this little ornament that she has in her hair. Pelage One Art, did you get the cray pen? Will be a very frugal way to do wax painting with detail. No, I did see some demos on that from CHA. I do not have one. Yeah, that is interesting. It's like a tool. Heat, so you could stick it on a crayon, or they have these little cakes of wax, and I guess it's hollow, and it will suck up some of the wax or hold some of it, so you can kind of come over and. I think you were telling me about that. Yeah, I'm thinking you might be able to use and people say no because it's not hollow, but gosh, you think there'd be a tip that you could put on your wood burner or your Creative Hot Marks to do the same thing. I'm using that same blue mix to add some really dark shadows in the hair. I'm so skeptical when something new like that comes out. April Liney, Lindsay, are you using something from Van Gogh's brand? No, these are all Turner. I don't have any of the Van Gogh watercolors. These are all Turner watercolors from Jerry's Artorama. Diane Nips, what size is your paper and what color would you mat this? My paper is 9x12, and gosh, I used to do a lot of colored matting, but honestly, I think a lot of things look best with black or white. This one I think would actually stand out more with black with a white beveled edge, or double matte, the inner matte being white, the outer matte being black. Yeah, colored matting is tricky. You have to. Yeah, and I think it kind of went out of favor too, because I think back the late 90s, even mid 90s, I think it was much more popular. And you see a lot of hotel art that was just so matchy. Yeah, it was matted in colors, and I love color. And sometimes color is really great, like on kids' artwork. It can be really great, but a lot of times it doesn't. I think with posters, colored matting is nice sometimes. It totally depends on the piece. This one I think would be better, like a painting. Painting photography generally is better with black or white because it lets the painting show. Drawings as well, better with black or white. Some posters that are really graphic, you need some color to balance them out. And so then a colored matte can really enhance it, or it can bring out a color, or make a color kind of make a poster match your decor a little bit better. Yes. It's a case by case. Always, because I said craft store I used to work in, I also covered the custom framing counter. And we would have people that would come in with, a very lovely painting and decide that they were going to have a brown mat with a brown frame because it's what matched their decor in their living room, and just ruin a nice piece of art with the wrong mat and the wrong frame. And sometimes you could not dissuade them because they were very concerned about matching the frame to the woodwork in whatever room it was going in. And there were times when I didn't want to put my name on the custom framing order because I didn't want anyone to think that I had recommended that combo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, you know, when you're trying to match something to go. It's easier with an office where offices have less descript furniture and stuff. All right, I got to tip this at an angle and see what I think this needs at this point. What do you think, Sarah?
I don't know. I think if you add anything more, you're going to overwork it.
Yeah, I think
from this angle.
I think we're good here. So if anybody has any more questions, just type them in. We'll go look at the original one. We can compare. I did keep the face a little bit lighter on the original one. Maybe lighter was better. I'm not sure. I'm going to look at them side by side. This one definitely has more of an Asian coloring. One thing that I find helps when I'm working is that when I'm done, if I turn it like upside down, like especially because you can get so used to looking at something that you might not be able to tell if an eye's off. Like I feel like that eye might be a little bigger because it's got more eyelashes on top. So I think I'll go and add a little bit more to the eyelashes on the other side.
K-More919, what do you think about the Honey Made paints? Senlier French artist watercolors.
I haven't used those, but M. Graham uses honey as the binder, and I really like them because they stay moist in the pan. And honey doesn't spoil, so you get you always have a semi-moist pan. And I recommend people that have like a student grade paint, if it's drying and cracking on them, to add a little honey, add a little glycerin, add a little honey.
Kelly Shirk, is it necessary to always let some white paper to show through your painting?
You don't have to, but it does add a nice sparkle. There, I think I like that.
Mark Bergeron, Lindsay, do you sell prints or mainly the originals at art fairs?
I only sell the originals, mainly because I paint so much and I create so much that I want it gone. I want to move on. I don't like seeing a stack of paintings in my studio. I like to let them go on and, you know, bless somebody else. I guess, I don't know, that sounds very conceited. You know, I like to get rid of them.
Mind 1845, can you use liquid latex as liquid frisket on watercolor?
You probably can. I haven't. Well, basically frisket is a liquid latex. I don't know if they do anything to make it release better, but I mean, I don't know. I haven't used just liquid latex. The frisket is a liquid latex. I guess you can try it. It probably would work. I don't think I'd buy a big bottle of it just to see. I'd just buy the frisket. Put those side by side. So
Rachel Tessa, can you use oil crayons too, or just paint?
For what?
I'm assuming for this. That's just what the question is. So I'm going to say she's probably seeing if you could do it with this painting.
Why not? Sure. I don't see why not. I don't see why you couldn't. Move that over so you can see. I don't know which one better. I think I like the first one better. I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of like the second one. Is that the one on the right?
This is the second one on the left. That's the first one.
No, I like the one on the right better, I think.
Yeah. I think I do too. Although I do like the darker skin tones in there. But
yes, and I like the background on the one you just did. I like that background.
Oh yeah, I like the background better on this. It's so funny.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. Interesting. I'll take another moment to thank our sponsor, jerrysartorama.com. You can find all the supplies I used today right at Jerry's, as well as all of your favorite art supply brands at the best prices. And here's a little secret. Always go to their homepage and see what they have for coupons, because often it is like 10, 20, 30% off your order. You can even save more when you sign up for their mailing lists. You know, make sure you check for those coupons before you order, because it is crazy. I honestly think that it's probably pretty close to wholesale when you're shopping there.
Probably, yeah, as close as they can get.
Oh yeah. Oh well, you get a huge company like that. I mean, that's why I wouldn't have an art supply shop, because you got Jerry's. It's a huge place, but I probably couldn't buy it to sell as cheap as I can buy it to have right there. Yeah. So yeah. And I thank them for making these tutorials free for everybody. Do we have any other questions or comments or anything else to share?
Just everyone's like, we have a majority of the vote saying they like the one on the right better.
Okay.
Everyone says thank you, great job. They love the painting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Great tutorial. And very nice, thank you.
All right, and if you want to catch some more live shows, I will be on This Crafty Life. If you check out thiscraftylife.com, it'll have all the details. That will be Monday at noon, I think, 11 or 12, somewhere around there. Check out thiscraftylife.com for more information. And I'll be starting a 12-week series over on the Video Creators channel. They are doing a series with 6 full-time YouTubers, people that, like, I make my living from videos. So we have 6 of us. 2 of us are DIYs, 2 are business coach people. We have a family vlogger, and of course Tim Schmoyer, the creator at Video Creators. We'll be talking about ways you can turn your YouTube channel into a full-time income. So yay! So that'll be a lot of fun. I know I'll probably learn as much as I contribute. So thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And before you leave, please leave a comment so I know you came, because I can't see the chat once I stop the broadcast. So please just leave a comment. Let me know you were here, and I will be hanging out in the comments for a little while to chit chat with you guys there too. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.
Bye.